Well, hey, everybody. Happy Sunday. Getting ready to record today's episode of Mike in the Midwest. Oops, we just started recording. Well, hey, everybody. Sorry about that. Started too soon. Getting ready to record Mike in the Midwest. So let's do this. How about that jazzy background? All right, here we go. What episode? 255. Here we go. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to episode number 255 of Mike in the Midwest, our mini podcast for the amazing patrons just like you of the Be Our Guest podcast. Of course, my name is Mike Rallman, host of the Be Our Guest podcast, which you can find wherever you download your shows, but you're a patron of the podcast, so you know what's going on. You've probably downloaded, I don't know, maybe 2,000 or so of our shows, maybe more than that. We've got about 2,800 podcasts in our library. Yes, there are quite a few, and we appreciate you downloading and listening to our shows. We've done quite a few, and knowing you've probably been on a show or two. That's why we call it the Be Our Guest podcast. It's a show that is driven by our listeners, and we always make it about our community. We love you guys. So thanks for being here. Hope you're having a great weekend or start to your week whenever you're listening to this show, maybe a little bit later on down the line, and just glad to have you here. We are together, the bonus show, Mike in the Midwest, where I just sit here on a Sunday morning before I have my lunch and talk about memories from just the past. What's it like growing up here in Missouri? What was it like being a teacher? What was it like being a kid growing up in St. Louis? What was just, this is a bonus show. It's my way of saying thank you for donating to the show, for keeping us on the air, because the show has a lot of bills. You got the bandwidth for the podcast. When we get new listeners, every time we get a download, it costs a bit more to pay those bills, which is a good thing because we always want to have more listeners. It lets us get, more friends out there. We got to pay for the website. We got to pay for the, there's all kinds of stuff. This StreamYard stuff, they doubled our costs this past year. It's okay though. We love them. I mean, they keep making it better. Check out this new jazzy background. They keep giving us new features. So we're going to use them. And all the money from the Patreon goes right into this. So hopefully you enjoy this. It gets us a lot of opportunities to go to YouTube, go to Facebook, go to Twitch, Twitter. So I think the product is good. And it's because of you guys who get to do all this. So a huge, huge thank you to you. So we are here. I will tell you what, I always start off with the weather report. I feel like Al Roker or somebody, St. Louis, Kent Earhart or Bob Richards back in the day, rest his soul. But man, it's been nice for the past few weeks, but it is hot again. And the thing is, again, these days your phone reminds you of how hot it is because right there on my home screen, extreme heat warning. It just says it right there on the home screen. Does not let you forget that it is smoking hot. Just went out for one lap around our lake, which is only a quarter mile around the lake right outside the door here. I walk on the treadmill on Sundays, but I always do one lap with Riley to go to the bathroom. Holy smokes. A quarter of a mile around the lake, because it's just like Florida and St. Louis. Like we have this super high humidity, and it's because I saw on Twitter that today in Florida there's an extreme heat warning, just like there is in St. Louis, and the heat index is going to get to 110 in Orlando. That's exactly what it's going to get here in St. Louis, 110 heat index. And I mean, you just walk outside. I was only out there for it was 3 songs. So what's that, about 12 minutes? I came back in. Whew, my back was soaking wet. I'm like, come on now. Are you kidding me? And it's not even 11 o'clock Central. It's going to be smoking this afternoon. But anyway, we know it. But I mean, it's July and it's the summer. It's supposed to be hot. So I mean, if it was cold, it'd be weird. But what do you do when you get old and you're a Midwestern dude? You talk about the weather and you complain about how hot it is, and then of course I'll be complaining about how cold it is in January because it'll be like punch your face cold. So that's why do we live here? We've got a few nice days every once in a while. Shout out to Fulton out in Indiana. Shout out to Graham over in Scotland who's watching live on YouTube. All right, so hopefully you're having a great weekend. Maybe you're catching some nice weather. Who knows? Somebody's got to get it, right? There's got to be somebody that's in that temperate zone at some point, right? There has to be. We get it every once in a while. So who knows? So what is going on around here? Not much. It's the week after the cruise. Man, this past week, it's that week where I caught myself telling Pam, this time last week, we were at Lookout Key and we were having true barbecue. And wasn't it so good? We're sitting there with Scott, Elizabeth, Emily, having that epic ribs, those epic ribs and a chicken sandwich, a spicy chicken sandwich. Oh, that was so good at lunch because, Pam's home now. And so we have lunch together. And instead, we're having a, pathetic turkey sandwich with some baked chips. And the thing we notice, we'll talk, Scott's going to be on the live call-in show tonight. So you have questions about that. We're not going to, we're going to do a cruise review of everything together. But if you have questions about the cruise, call in tonight. We could talk about it if you have any direct questions. But one of the things that I will say about Lookout, because it's my first time going to Lookout, that Pam noticed, and I definitely noticed, but when she said it, reinforced it in my head, I did not tell her this beforehand, is the sound of Lookout. Now, I don't know if you guys do this, but we have basically those Amazon dots, those Echo dots in like every room of our house. We just got, and we bought them years and years. Actually, we bought them at our old house, and we moved into this house in like 2019. Like there was like one Prime Day or a couple of Prime Days right when they first started. They were like dirt cheap. They were like $10, $15. And it was, they were like the hottest thing. They're not even that, popular anymore. But we bought those little, little hockey puck little speakers, and they were just so cheap. I just kept buying them because they're like $10, right? So we have them in the bathrooms. We got, I got one in here, got one in our bedroom on the nightstand. Got, they're everywhere because they were so dirt cheap. And we only use them basically for playing the radio, in each room, or just like if you have a question, like what time is it or what's the weather going to be, so forth like that. And also in our bedroom, what we use it for is that we use it for nighttime sounds. So every night I tell it, who play rainforest sounds, and it plays these rainforest sounds, right? So to go to sleep for like the last few years, we have this, it sounds like a rainforest, like it's got some bird, chirping birds and so forth, and some like a stream. I don't know, like how did we sleep before these things? Like when it was just silence. Now if it's silence, I feel like I'm in an insane asylum. But 5 years ago, it's how I slept every night. It's weird. But the thing about getting back to Lookout has the best sound. I mean, if you want to have the sound of like what an ocean sounds like, and this, again, I haven't been around the world. I don't have a passport. I have not been to like Hawaii. I have not been to Fiji. I have not been to, name all your probably better beaches in the world. I've not been there. So maybe I'm wrong. But for those people that have been there and been to other places, I thought the sounds at Lookout were amazing because I just sat there right on the water's edge with Pam, and you can pull those like low chairs, those like beach chairs that are super low where your butt sits right on the sand, maybe a couple inches above the sand, and sat there and kind of closed my eyes and just took it in, and just like you could just hear and it was just the best sound. Now Castaway has some of that, but not as much as Lookout. Lookout had to me, it may, that's going to depend on the day, probably the weather, but the sounds of Lookout were just chef's kiss. They were so good. So if you do, when you get the opportunity to go to Lookout, because again, it's beautiful. The sands are kind of pinkish. The waters are this beautiful blue, just different shades of blue. The sky's amazing. It's a natural beauty at Lookout. But I think we got to make sure that we always take in all the senses. You're going to eat some great food, obviously, at your taste, but hearing, I think a lot of times we neglect that. And I just closed my eyes for a little bit and just sat there and just, my feet were in the water, feeling the water rush over my toes. I had my toes buried in the cold, cool sand. And that felt great. But then just listening to that sound, because again, I'm from Missouri. It's very, very rare. There's very, very few days in my life that I get to hear the ocean, unless it's like on the Echo, on the Amazon Echo. And that's not the same, like this was, because it's also that multi-layer kind of thing. Because you hear kids playing in the water. You hear, the lifeguard sir, please don't go between the cones. It's like but it's real. It's not a simulation. Like you are on the beach, and it was everything. Like it was just it was so relaxing. I was like, it was my zen. I did not want to leave. So make sure you take time to just like listen when you're on lookout. I think, sometimes we just overlook, we're always about like seeing and taking pictures. And I'm terrible at that. Like I want to capture all the moments. I want to videotape. I want to, I want to shoot video. It sounds old. I want to shoot video on my phone. I want to, narrate the scene. I want to take so many pictures and make sure I get the right angle. But I think take a moment though, just to, shut yourself up, sit down, don't talk, close your eyes and listen. That's just my tip for lookout, especially lookout. It was awesome. Grab that chair, the low chair, put your feet where the water's coming over. It's cool. It feels great. And just let your body just shut down. Let your body relax. Let your body vacation. That's what it's called. It's awesome. Anyway, hope you're having a great week. That's my tip for the day. Remember those old tip for the days back in the day? Now you got to be an old timer. Remember way back, it's talking about Resort TV. And I just love how random these shows are. It's just flow of conscience. But before what they have now with the influencers, we were talking about this on the Discord a couple days ago. Before Stacy, we had Stacy. We love Stacy Aswad. Then we had Carissa before her. Before Carissa, there was these animated like little sequences. They were so awesome. Like the animation of those things were perfect. And it came on and they did the zippity doodah tip for today. And they would come on and tell you the tip for today every day. And it was like, told you all these things. So that was your zippity doodah tip for today. Slow down, put your feet in the water, in the sand, and listen at Lookout Key. And don't run in front of the buses. That was one of the tips for today at Walt Disney World. It was weird. I don't know. It was like Timon and Pumbaa. So weird. Shout out to Fulton too. Happy 26th birthday, he says in the chat. Okay, so what else going on around here? Not too much. Just trying to stay cool. We got a live show tonight. Scott's going to be back, so we're looking forward to that. He'll be tired because I think he got up like at 4:30 in the morning to play golf, but I'm going to bug him to make sure he's there. So hopefully he takes a nap. So we'll see, make sure that happens. Let's see. Mallory's had all kinds of cheerleading going on. They got their media day today, which it's funny. They call it media day because her grandpa, Pam's dad, called yesterday and thought she was going to be on the news tonight because he got confused because they're always on TV every year because of the cheerleaders and the football team go down to the local NBC affiliate when we do the, first responders football game and the military support football game. They go down and do a big thing on the TV station downtown, but this isn't that. The media day. Now they call it media day. This is how schools changed, right? When I was in school, they called it team picture day. You just went in, put on your uniform, boom. They took a team picture and they took like your individual picture, and that was that. Right. I mean, seriously. I mean, I just remember you had to that was like it before practice. Basically, it was just right before practice. You'd put on your uniform. We'd all like stand there like a bunch of goofs, baseball team, stand there like a bunch of goofs, team picture. And then, everybody have to do their individual picture and try not to look like a goof. You'd have to, either smile or not smile. I think you'd not smile as like, whatever, try to look tough as a baseball player. And then you were done. Take your uniform off and you practice for a couple hours. No. This is media day. So hair's got to be done. She got her hair done yesterday. And dude, the photographer comes into the high school. They're having all the lights and they're blacking out the gym. There's a fog machine coming. It's a whole scene and it takes like hours. And the seniors they're getting banners made because they hang these big old banners in the football stadium and then they move them into the gym during basketball season. And it's a scene. So there's like 4 different not costumes, but different uniforms they wear for this whole and they do, the videos for the video boards and stuff. So like, just like when you go to a sporting event, right? And they have like a jumbotron person, like with a basketball. So like they'll be, like running and, looking into the camera with their palms. It's a whole scene. It's nuts compared to what it used to be. We used to just look at the camera like you got like a 5x7 and that was it. Everything's like that though, right? Every sport, like I've seen like travel baseball. I don't have any boys or anything, but I see like travel baseball. I mean, I was like on a travel ball team that was really good when I was a kid, and we were lucky. Like we got bags and cleats and hats, and we even had home and away uniforms when I was on the one team. We were the Cardinals. We had the gray uniforms, white uniforms. But I mean, the stuff the kids get nowadays, and they travel like every weekend. We maybe went to one or two away tournaments a year. It's wild how things have changed. But yeah, it's a whole scene. So Pam's in charge of this. She's booster president person. So I'm going to be here working. Thank goodness. So I'll be here. Anyway, that's how all that stuff goes down. I'm just ready for football season to start. I just want to go to some football games, but we got to wait about a month. I guess about 6 weeks, something like that. Anyway, so let's hit the feedback from last week's show about, and again, could I be back on a cruise? I know Scott's getting to go on a cruise on Labor Day. Scott, can I go with you? I'm ready. All right. So we talked about travel soothing the soul. Man, it was so good to travel, see Scott and his family, see so many of our listeners on the podcast cruise, and just kind of see the world, right? Just to see an ocean, to see, sand, like I said, feel sand, hear an ocean, to get to meet people from all over the world. We'll talk about that in just a minute too. But talking about last week's show, Trisha, my good friend up in Wisconsin, said, I am a cruise convert. I had reservations about cruising, cramped quarters, would there be enough to do, motion sickness, etc. The Disney magic put all my concerns to rest. Lorelei and I had ample space in the stateroom, as well as quiet areas throughout the ship. We really liked the padded portholes, outside keys, and fathoms. There was a good mix of activities geared for all ages, and I was surprised at how little movement you felt, especially on a smaller ship. I've already got my placeholder and my eye on a West Coast cruise for spring break. Yes. I was wondering how much motion there would be on the Magic because I've been on the bigger ships for the last 7 or 8 cruises. And there was one night where there was a little motion, but it didn't bother me. Like I liked it. Like, and the thing is, I can't do like Flight of Passage. I can't do Star Tours. I can't do Guardians. Makes me sicker than a dog. But the motion on the ship doesn't bother me. And we even had those, like I told Pam, I was like, oh man, I've watched some vlogs and there people keep talking about motion on the Magic. And it kind of, and it was the same like itinerary that we were doing, the 5-night Bahamian. And I'm thinking, you don't go that far in the Bahamas. Like you're not, traveling much. You're just going around Nassau, Castaway, Lighthouse. You're not going geographically very far. So I don't know what this ton of motion is about. But I was like, just to be safe, call the doctor, get those little prescription patches you can put behind your ear. And so Pam's like, oh, dude, I'm doing that just to be safe. So she put one on, right as before we sailed away. I'm like, give me one. I'll try it. I've never tried it. Let's see what it's like. So I put it on. Boom. I took a shower. I knocked it off immediately. I didn't realize it. Like I thought I had it on. And then she's like, where's your patch? I'm like, what's right? Nope, it's gone. So I never wore it for the whole time because I thought I had it on, but then she told me I didn't have it on because I took a shower and I washed it right off. So, oh, well, I guess I got a dose. Like, I don't know how long it takes to go through your skin. Maybe I got the dose like immediately. I don't know. So I had some, but not much. I had like a few hours worth of dose, but yeah, it was fine. And the ship, man, the Magic is a great ship. It's got everything you need. In the adult area, holy smokes, is awesome. And the public areas are huge on that ship. And Dennis says, I completely agree that travel is good for the soul. It really helps bring to life everything you have ever learned about in school or in the news. Our Mediterranean cruise last year gave me a new appreciation for the ancient world after visiting Pompeii, Rome, Athens, and other historical sites. Travel brings places to life in a way that television and books cannot. That is one of the reasons I like to go to new places on vacation, not necessarily every vacation, but from time to time. Such a good point. And that's why Pam and I, or whole family, is going to get passports, and we want to see more of the world because I'm going to talk about this. Well, here, let's move on because I want to talk about where life was limited because of something. So if you have feedback on this show or any show, and not just Trisha and Dennis, but I appreciate them each and every week. They're my all-stars. please come over to patreon.com/beourguestpodcast and leave your feedback. Feedback makes this show better. So again, patreon.com/beourguestpodcast. Leave your feedback today. Okay, so today's topic, it's July 20th. And of course, maybe you'll notice, maybe you'll see this on social media somewhere. Maybe you'll see it on the regular news, broadcast news. It's the anniversary of the moon landing, right? Buzz and Neil landed on the moon. Michael Collins flew there with them in the command module, and thousands of people worked together in their specialties to get them there. And just think about the the work it took to get humans from the earth to the moon. I mean, it's amazing. And of course, this happened before I was born. I'm old as dirt, but I was born in 73 and this took place in 69. But my heroes have always been those Mercury and Gemini and Apollo astronauts because they were doing things that were just unheard of. You know, I always read about all these astronauts. I've read most of their biographies. I've read a lot of the uh, biographies of mission control folks and even other people. I've always been intrigued by that era of Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo astronauts and how NASA was formed in those years. And there's a lot of Disney in it because they had to invent things that were not they weren't there. They had to invent the Kennedy Space Center. It wasn't there. They had to invent the Johnson Space Center in Houston. It wasn't there. They had to invent, they couldn't just fly rockets to the moon. They had to build the systems that would build the rockets. They had to build things from scratch. And the thing was, they had to have dreamers. I mean, they truly had to have dreamers because, like, how do you do this? Like, how do you land on the moon? It's got different gravity. It's, there's so many things you had to think through. You had to really think through. But I mean, the courage of the men who went there, in the trust they had to have in their fellow engineers and scientists that this stuff is going to work when you put, yourself into that rocket, that, I'm trusting my life with you when you light the fuse that we're going to go towards the moon. It's an amazing thing. I mean, there's just so many layers to it when you read the story of the Mercury, the Gemini, and the Apollo astronauts, because one built on the next. You couldn't get to Apollo without Gemini. You couldn't get to Gemini without Mercury. But if you really want to kind of get to the Apollo program quickly, I would recommend, there's a mini series that was put out in the 90s. It was produced by Tom Hanks. It's called From the Earth to the Moon. It's a 12-story mini series and it's on, you can get it on, it's actually on, you can purchase it on Amazon Prime. And we taught with this program at Space Camp for educators. When I worked down there, we used one of the episodes. Specifically, we taught from one of the episodes. I think it was episode 10. But we use that episode as one of our lessons down at Space Camp. But I would encourage you to get that. Just watch it all the way through, and it will give you a pretty good, just like Cliff's Notes version of From Mercury to Apollo, of how the program worked. It's based on Andrew Chaikin's book, A Man on the Moon, and it's so good. I mean, it's so good. I've read that Chaikin book 3 times because it's just a great story of the Apollo astronauts going back to Gemini and Mercury a little bit. But what I wanted to kind of get at today, and again, I don't want to go super long, was I call the story One Giant Opportunity for Mike. And it gets back to, Neil said it's one small step for man, but one giant leap for mankind. And, I look back and, I was teaching 6th grade back in 1999 at Wedgwood Elementary. Got to teach next door to Pam, which was awesome. And I taught across the way from my buddy Dave, which Dave back in the day was like my Scott, dude. We were thick as thieves, man. We were best buddies. And it was awesome because, Pam was next door. She was like super cool. Like we hung out all the time. Dave, we hung out all the time. We had such a cool dynamic where I taught, because the way our school was broken up was in pods. And where we taught, we had 5th and 6th grade in a pod. We were in pod D, like Dumbo. And so we had 8 classrooms in our pod. And Pam and I obviously taught 6th grade with 2 other teachers, and Dave taught 5th grade with 3 other teachers. So we had 8 classes. but Dave was right across the hall and Pam was next door. So and Pam and I and one other fifth grade teacher, we hung out, all four of us, all the time. I mean, we were together all the time because we're all the same age. And but anyway, the story I want to tell in the next 10 minutes is just a great opportunity that I had. And I've told this briefly, but I just remember how it changed, like how one opportunity can change your life, and then how you need to let that opportunity like take hold. So I just remember one afternoon, my principal came in. Again, I was a new teacher. I was still new at this whole thing, teaching sixth grade. And I come from the university, and I thought I was a decent teacher. But when you're new, you're just trying to figure things out every single day. You're trying to survive. Like, no matter how great of grades you get at the university as a teacher, you don't know 90% of what it takes to be a teacher. You just got to be in the classroom. You got to figure it out day by day, because students are going to throw things at you. Parents are going to throw things at you that you never saw before. So I would always go to Jane next door, Mrs. Timmons. I go to Mrs. Parent across the hall, the two veteran teachers, and ask them a ton. Like, okay, what do I do with this? And I'd ask Pam, because Pam had taught more than I had a year or two ahead of me. I'm like, dude, what do I do, Pam? Like, this is nuts. Like, this parents asked me to do this, and this kid just, cheated. What do I do? So I'd always be bouncing ideas off them because they all had more seniority than me. Anyway, the principal comes in and she's like, I have this great opportunity. She's like, here's the deal. I know you love science. I'm like, I do love science. I always taught, I was always teaching my kids. Like, we had extra time, always doing extra science experiments with them. So she's like, Boeing just contacted me. Now, if you don't know, St. Louis is a hub for Boeing. It was a hub for McDonnell Douglas back in the day. McDonnell Douglas was based in St. Louis. Boeing bought McDonnell Douglas anyway. So and it was in our school district, because our school district is right by the airport. So she's like, Boeing just contacted us and they need to send one of our teachers to space camp for educators. I'm like, oh, what? Because as a kid, I'd always wanted to go to space camp, because now, if you don't know, if you're of my age, one of the prizes on all those kid shows like Double Dare, Finders Keepers, all those Nickelodeon shows, it was always like, you can win a trip to space camp. But dude, I could never afford to go to space camp. I was a poor kid, dude. Space camp's like $1,000 for a week. Now my cousin got to go because his parents had more money than me, dude. And he came home with a flight suit and all that stuff. I was so jealous, but whatever. He always had the cool, like, he lived on a golf course. Like, it was cool for him. I knew I wasn't going to get to go, but like, when she came in with that, she's like, dude, we got to send a teacher to space camp. You want to go? I was like, yes. So I told her, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to space camp for teachers. Okay. So it was like a summer thing, right? You're going to go in July. So then I started looking at it, and the thing was, you didn't just go to space camp. You got to go to KSC, Kennedy Space Center, for part of it too. So you did a thing at space camp for like a week, and then they flew you to KSC to watch a launch. I'm like, holy God, are you kidding me? This is like, I mean, Disney World times 10 for me. This is great. But then I looked at it, and the thing was, you had to fly. Now listen to this. You had to, because it's in Huntsville, right? You had to fly from St. Louis to Atlanta, then change planes in Atlanta, fly in a smaller plane from Atlanta to Huntsville, and then fly from Huntsville to Atlanta to, I think it was Orlando, and then they bust you over to KSC. There were like so many flights in this. Now, if you've been with the podcast forever, you know that I was scared to death to fly. So I sat on this for a night, and then I went in and I talked to Pam. I talked to Pam about this. I said, Pam, dude, I so want to do this. I so want to do this. But I can't fly. Dude, I cannot fly. I cannot fly. So what I did, I went in and told the principal I can't do it. I said, I can't fly. I can't do it. I can't do all those flights. I don't go on planes. And so what I did was I asked Dave, because he was just like me. He loves space just as much as I did. I said, Dave, dude, boom, golden opportunity, man, take it. And he did, and he went, and he loved it. But the thing was, here's what I did. I started regretting it as soon as I gave it to Dave. I regretted it so much. So what I did, here's problem solver. I wrote a proposal to our director of professional development at our school district, Mr. Bartlett, back in the day, God rest his soul. And I asked if I could go to space camp for educators funded by our school district, because I knew they did this program just for teachers, right? Too, that not because Boeing was given a scholarship to do this, but I wanted to just go to the part that was in Huntsville. I was like, I didn't care about the go and see. I did want to see the launch, but if I could just go to the space camp part in Huntsville and they'd pay my way, and I told them like, dude, you don't have to buy me a plane ticket. Like I was trying to give them a bargain. I wasn't going to fly. I was like, I'll drive, I'll pay for my own gas, just pay for that $9.99 fee, and we'll call it a day as part of professional development. So I wrote up this proposal, and I wanted to go the same week that Dave went so we could go together, and boom, they bought it. So I ended up getting to go to space camp with Dave. Now he got to go on to the launch and stuff like that, but here I saw that I won because I didn't have to fly. Dave won because he got to go, and he got to, he got all these goodies from Boeing. He got actually a better deal because he got all these, like, all the swag and stuff. And he got to go on to Florida for like another 3 or 4 days and got all this other cool stuff. But we both won, right? We both won. Well, the bottom line is I fell in love with space camp. As soon as I got back, I wrote the director of space camp for educators, and I said, what do I have to do to return as an instructor? I said, I have to be a teacher in the summer. Like, who are these teachers? Because the teachers were incredible. And she said, well, and I talked to her when I was down there. Like, I talked to her a couple times. She says, yeah, you could do that if you're willing. And you just got to come down like last week of May, and you take this, you do a week of training, and then you got to take a 500 question test. And if you get a 97% or higher on the test, you get to stay. Then you work the summer, and you go back in the second week of August. I was like, oh, I can do that. So I did, and went back, and I worked the next couple of summers, and it was the greatest thing I ever did. It was amazing. But the thing was, what I want to say why it was the greatest opportunity of my life is that, this was before the podcast. This was before anything. It was summers of 2000. I went down as a, going through professional development the summer of 2001. I taught there in 2002 and 2003. And the thing was, and I'll tell some more stories maybe next week, because I don't want this to get out of hand. It's too long. But here's the thing. I want to leave you with this, because I always want to leave you with something to think about, is that, and this is true of the podcast every single week, is that I got to, because again, I taught teachers, right? I taught teachers. Teachers would come in from all over the country. And then the last week was always called International Space Camp. So the last week, so if you became the teacher of the year for your state, so every state at the end of the school year will have a teacher of the year for your states, like the state teacher of the year for Missouri, the state teacher of the year for Arkansas, for California. And then there's actually teachers of the year for countries. It's like the state or the country, the teacher of the year for Canada, for Malaysia, for American Samoa, for Thailand, for Russia back then. I mean, there were teachers of the year from all these countries. So we'd have international space camp at the last one. It was like invitation only. It was a huge deal. These teachers all, like, they did 6 things as far together. They traveled together, and they did these 6 things. One of them, they got to meet the president. And one of the other things, they flew with the Blue Angels. They got to do all these cool things. But the last thing they always did was go to space camp. This was always the 6th out of the 6 things. They had already met the president. They'd already flown with the Blue Angels. And so I was always like, dude, I loved it, because I asked them all about like, dude, like, I think it was Bush that was the president then. I was like, what was it like to be in the White House? Like, was he as goofy as he is on TV? Like, and I think it was right after somebody threw a shoe at him or something. I was asking him all the questions, right? And I'm like, did you black out? And a couple of them did. Like, did you black out when you flew in the Blue Angels? Like, they'd knock you out? Like, yeah, dude, or puke. I was like, they're, because like I was with these teachers for 6 days. You'd eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. And so you had time to, and the thing was, like, these were the best teachers in their states or in their countries. Like, I had the teacher of the year from American Samoa on my team. I mean, he's from the other side of the world. And like, again, I was scared to fly at this point. I had never hardly left the Midwest at this point. And I'm asking all these questions. I'm learning. I'm just like a kid in a can, and I'm teaching at space camp, right? I'm running these simulators. I'm like running missions, but I'm also teaching all these lessons about the Apollo program, all these astronauts and so forth, and how the space shuttle works. I mean, it's perfect. But the thing was, I was the one that was learning more than I think they did. I did get to teach a lot about how, what's the cockpit like in the space shuttle, and, what's reentry like for a space shuttle, and, who were some of the big people in the Apollo program, and, what was it like, helped run the MOCR, the mission operations control room, during their simulations. And so I did a lot of stuff, that was nuts and bolts during their 6 day experience at space camp. However, what I learned was what it was like to be a great teacher, because these people were all empathetic. They all listened well. They all asked great questions. They all cared about me as a person, even though I was just a dude from Missouri. I was just a regular sixth grade teacher. I wasn't a teacher of the year. I was like in my fourth year of regular teaching. These people were veteran teachers that have been recognized by their peers for being the best in their country, the best in their states. They had PhDs, some of them. They were the best, but they acted like I was a peer. I was just beginning to be a teacher, but I learned so much by sitting down and sharing tater tots and sloppy joes with them in Alabama for a summer. And it was one of those things. And like with the podcast, when I have guests on Mondays, I do the travel thing for a living, but when I get to hear about people's trips on Mondays, I'm always so excited, because I learn better ways to see Walt Disney World, or better ways to experience a Disney cruise, or to see Disneyland, because I haven't been to Disneyland that many times. Some of our guests have been there dozens of times, and they know way better how to get snacks, or how to see DCA, or, what shows not to miss. And I think that you got to think about that for the whole world, right? That there's people out there that maybe have less experience than us, but are just passionate about things. And if you're just willing to listen, and, sometimes that's going to be you, though, that you can dispense that information to others, and be willing to do that, because I think it's a two-way street all the time. But yeah, I just, I think a lot of opportunities just pop up, and that pop up, you never know what's going to happen. I remember I was sitting in my desk grading, I think it was like math quizzes, and boom, here comes Mrs. Guider, the principal, in. Hey, Mike, I want to talk to you real quick about something. I got an opportunity for you. Dude, changed my life. It was like a Friday afternoon. I had no idea she was coming in. Bam, change your life. Could happen for you tomorrow. Hope it does. So I just want to share that story for you. Just something to think. I would try to always give you something to think about with these shows. Hope it's always worth your time. All right, gonna jump out of here. Hope you can join us tonight for the live call-in show. But more importantly, hope you're having a great day wherever you are. So till we get back together again, you guys have a great weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you real soon. See you guys tonight. Yes, sir.